5 months ago, GearBest sent me this, the GPD XD. It's an Android tablet shaped like a Nintendo 3DS XL, meant for running emulators. I did a full review on this thing on both my YouTube channels when I first got it. Now it's been 5 months. I had plenty of time to really dig deep into this device. Would I still recommend it? Quick recap. As I mentioned in my previous video, I'm a huge fan of both emulation and portable device. As you can see, I have a pretty big Game Boy collection. I have also other devices that are meant as dedicated emulation machines. I spent a good chunk of my adult life looking for the perfect emulation device, and this, the GPD XD, is pretty much the closest thing there is to it. On the hardware, this is a 5-inch screen, touchscreen here, runs Android 4.4. I know that's not the most recent version of Android, but you're going to be playing emulators on this thing anyway, so it doesn't really matter. At least it hasn't been a problem for me all these months. Input-wise, this is leagues above everything else I've ever owned. What I used to use before this for emulation was both a PSP 2000 and a PSP Go. I actually prefer the PSP Go because it's more pocketable. The problem with the PSP Go is it only has L and R, and it lacks a second analog stick. So that means while you can play PS1 games, it's not the best fit for the system. There's a lot of workarounds to kind of simulate the extra buttons that are missing on the PSP, but this is really the way to go. 2 analogs, R1, R2, L1, L2. As you can see here, this thing is capable of emulating a lot of different systems, and they all run really well, including, yes, the Dreamcast. This thing emulates everything, including and below the Dreamcast. Personally, I'm a big fan of the PS1 emulation on this thing. It's basically flawless. If there's any lag, input lag, or anything like that, if the emulation isn't running 100%, I wouldn't be able to tell the difference. I never had a PS1 myself, so I kind of discovered the PS1 library pretty late in my life using the PSP, in fact, but like I mentioned, this is a better control scheme for it. Now, one of the best features of this thing is one of the things I was most interested in, and it turns out I actually use it quite a bit, is the HDMI, the mini HDMI out here in the back of the unit. Like I mentioned, you can plug this in with an HDMI cable to your television. Then you stick a little USB OTG cable here in the micro USB port, and you can plug in any controller, wired or otherwise, and basically run everything that this thing runs on a big screen TV. Again, if there's any noticeable input lag, I honestly couldn't tell. That effectively makes the GPD XD kind of an alternative to the Switch in that you have a portable console where you can play all of your favorite retro games. You can also plug it into the television, very easy. Just stick the HDMI cable in the back, stick the little dongle for you to connect the wireless controller in my case, because I don't want to have wires running across my living room. And there you go, you're playing whatever you want on the big screen TV. When you go to work or you're going to meet people or whatever, you just unplug it, throw it in your pocket, and you're still playing the exact same game you're playing on the big screen TV, which is basically the concept behind the Switch. I can't tell you how many times I was playing a Nintendo 64 game in my living room, and then I feel like lying down on my bed, so I just unplug it from the television in the living room, plug it into the television in the bedroom, and just keep playing there. And then say I'm going to meet some friends or I'm going to my parents' house or whatever, I just unplug this from the television, throw it in my pocket, and then I still have the whole system, all of the games with me. I play on my break at work, then I get back home, plug it right back to the television, and continue right where I left off, now again on the big screen TV. That usability, it makes this thing as close to perfect as it gets. Close, but not quite there yet. One thing that upsets me about the system is that it doesn't have Bluetooth. That means I can't use Bluetooth headphones, which is pretty disappointing, and connecting a controller to this thing is not as easy as it could have been. Like I mentioned, you have to stick a little USB adapter in the back here and then put in something like this, a wireless controller dongle. So it still works, and you can have multiple controllers if you have a USB hub or something like that, but it's not as simple as it should be. There shouldn't be a middleman here. I would have loved to be able to just connect controllers wirelessly to this thing. That would have made it pretty much perfect. So yeah, 5 months later, I'm still completely in love with this thing. If you're a fan of portable gaming, of retro gaming, emulation, you cannot go wrong with the GPD XD. Now, one thing that a lot of people asked me and suggested in the comments of my previous review was the GPD Win. What about the GPD Win? It's made by the same company, but it's slightly different. This is, believe it or not, a full-fledged Windows laptop. As you can see, it has the keyboard here. It has the same amount of inputs. You have the 4 trigger buttons back here. You have dual analogs, a D-pad, face buttons, and it runs a full copy of Windows 10. Pretty remarkable considering you can fit this in your pocket. Now, a lot of people think that because this is a full-fledged computer, there's just a lot more that you can do on a computer. This would be naturally better than the GPD XD, right? Not exactly. A lot of these games are not really meant to be played on this form factor, on a screen this size. So you have a lot of issues with controllers not working quite well. They need tweaking. The graphics, obviously, this is a miniaturized computer, so this is not packing a state-of-the-art video card. So you're limited to some games that are, let's say, 2013 and below. And that's probably even being a little generous. So for indie games, for older games, emulation, old DOS games, those types of things, this works really well, provided you're playing games that are suited to be played with a controller. So you're not going to be playing your Counter-Strikes or your Command & Conquers on this thing, though I do have Command & Conquer here because I'm such a fanboy. I even beat them on the PSP, believe it or not. The PS1 ports of those classic 90s RTSs, I have all of them on my PSP. I'm such a big fan of the genre that I can actually put up with this kind of control scheme. I do realize it's not for everybody. Also, this being a full-fledged notebook, the battery life is not as good as on the GPD XD. So this is a remarkable machine. It impresses. If I pull this out when I'm with my friends, I was just last night at something called Arcade Bar, or Bar Arcade, I forget now. It's basically an event that's put together by a local bar here in Calgary, and I have a bunch of friends there. They partner up with a shop called Video Game Trader. It's a great store here in Calgary where you can find Super Nintendo games, N64 games, like you name it, they probably have it. So they partner up with this bar and they bring out Super Nintendos. They had a Famicom there. It was the first time I ever saw a Famicom with my own 2 eyes. They had a Switch there. They have arcades. They have games on a big screen. It's a great time. So I had these out because one of my friends that was there asked me to bring them out to show it to people there. And this thing always catches eyeballs because it's pretty impressive that this is a full-fledged computer. But like I said, there are a few issues with trying to cram a full Windows laptop into something that fits in your pocket. If you only had money for one, I would definitely say go with the GPD XD. Better battery, the games are just more suited to be played on a portable machine. Again, this is literally an Android tablet. So the apps, the emulators, the games, everything is more suited to be played on a portable machine that just happens to have a very handy controller attached right to it. They're both great devices. I love having these things in my collection. I love GearBest for sending me these toys, but one is just, I think, it just works better overall. So if you only had money for one, I'd say go with the GPD XD. But these are my thoughts on the GPD XD, and I guess kind of a mini review of the GPD Win. I've had them for about the same amount of time, and I play with them almost the same amount, but I definitely enjoy myself more with the GPD XD. I feel like it's a more well-rounded product. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. If this is your first time here on my channel, consider subscribing, dropping a like, leave a comment, follow me on social media. You know the drill. That's everything for today. I'll catch you guys next time.